Well, folks, we had a bunch of stories in regards to Nintendo Switch 2, the future of Nintendo. We have some Famitsu sales updates. We have Nintendo answering a bunch of questions from a Q&A. I figure we'll go over all of it for full context of what was actually said. We have some updates as well and some DLC and just more. This is actually a pretty packed episode, so I hope you guys are ready to buckle up. Before we dive in, though, I want to remind you we are giving away 5 copies of Kirby Air Riders. You can enter through the link down in the pinned comment or the description. I've seen a few questions out there about the Age of Imprisonment one. Nobody responded to my initial emails for the initial 3 winners, so new winners have been drawn, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. Just like with the Mario Galaxy 1+2, only 1 out of 3 winners is confirmed. I keep trying to get more and more people, drawing new names and drawing winners, and I can't do anything until people respond to the emails. So the emails are how we confirm the winners, and then we make the announcement once we have the confirmation. So the fact that you don't see an announcement means we don't have any confirmed winners, which does mean if you entered those giveaways, you still have a chance to win. So pay attention to your inboxes. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this first part. And this is the Famitsu sales update for last week. I thought this was interesting because the sales actually went up for Switch 2, and it's because of Dragon Quest. So we can see the Dragon Quest 1+2 HD launched, and we see a 232,000 launch here for the base Nintendo Switch. We see 96,000, almost 97 on the PlayStation 5, and you're seeing about 84,000 on the Switch 2. That's a launch of over 400,000 units for Dragon Quest. That is a very, very good hold in that regard. Obviously, we see Legend ZA at number 4 holding at 82,000 on Switch, moving 1.15 million units. But more than that, we see Mario Kart World chiming in with another 50,000 this week, and ZA on Switch 2, the Switch 2 edition there, selling 35,000. That's at 720,000. Again, combined, that's almost, not quite, but almost 2 million in sales for Pokemon Legend ZA. Combined, Bonanza coming in still in that top 10 as well with 8,000. And then we see Tales of Xillia Remastered at 7 and 9 as well, respectively, on the PlayStation 5. And then we see Eartheon, a new release for Switch, chiming in at number 10, and you can see the rest of the top 30. But what's interesting here is the Nintendo Switch 2. It dropped down to 60,000 sales last week, jumped back up to 83,000 this week. We're really hitting the holiday season here. That's already like 340,000 in sales in the last 2 weeks. So pretty crazy. Things are obviously going really well for Switch 2 as it hits 2.5 million units in Japan. So pretty impressive there. And we have more we need to talk about beyond sales data because, look, sales data is what it is. We just got the big update from Nintendo. But one thing we didn't get into was the big Q&A. So we have a Q&A here to go over. We're just going to read through it as quickly as we can. I'll leave my commentary to the side because honestly, there's just a lot to go over here. So let's just go over it. Question 1 from the official Nintendo Q&A. Will there be any changes to how new titles are released on the Switch 2 compared to the Switch generation? Also, could you tell me how you plan to allocate development resources in order to balance developing new titles while operating existing ones? Previously, the stock market mainly focused on the number of new titles releasing during the year, but since the Switch 2 can also play compatible Nintendo Switch software, my impression is that the lifespan for each title will be longer. Many consumers were probably surprised about the recent announcement of a major update to Animal Crossing New Horizons. With the performance improvements on Switch 2, it feels like the complexity of developing new software has also increased, and the state of development has changed from how it was before. Shintaro Furukawa responds, our development resources are being shifted to focus on the Switch 2, but we continue to develop Switch software and plan to release new titles in the future. Our dedicated video game platform business is based on first expanding the hardware install base and then continually releasing new titles. We were able to strike a good balance in the Nintendo Switch generation, with many games becoming evergreen titles that continue to sell well over a long period of time. This has allowed us to maintain the overall momentum of the platform. This is true for Switch 2 as well, as it is extremely important that we not only continuously release new games, but also work to ensure that these titles continue to sell throughout the platform's lifecycle. Software development costs are higher and development periods are longer, making it more of a challenge to continue introducing new titles at a good pace. Switch 2 can also play compatible Switch software, so we would like to recommend Nintendo Switch software as well to consumers who are picking up a game console for the first time. With these considerations in mind, we believe we will be able to maintain the momentum of our Nintendo Switch 2 business by striking a good balance between introducing new titles and encouraging consumers to play evergreen titles over a long period of time. Then Shinya Takahashi comes in and says, on the development team, we're always striving to deliver new titles at a steady pace. However, we also want to continue in placing importance on things like the recently announced update to Animal Crossing New Horizons. We are constantly considering the balance between the development of brand new Nintendo Switch 2 titles and new entries in existing series and updates to existing Switch software. We are also working to deepen our collaborations with existing partner companies, as well as exploring opportunities with new business partners to expand our development capabilities in terms of both quality and quantity. In addition, we will allocate sufficient capital for research and development as necessary. Next question. Could you tell us about the future sales momentum of the Switch 2 hardware and about the target audiences among whom you aim to expand adoption of the hardware? You say the sales are currently mainly focused on existing Nintendo Switch owners, but do you believe there is still room for sales towards existing users to grow? Or are you planning to gradually focus on expanding the new users as well? Furukawa. Our goal for Switch 2 at launch was to leverage the high engagement with Switch and encourage all existing Switch owners to purchase the new system. Switch 2 hardware unit sales have exceeded 10 million units as of the end of September 2025, but there's still a significant gap compared to the Switch install base of 150 million units. Given that fact, for now we expect to maintain or remain in a phase where it is primarily existing Switch owners who will purchase Switch 2, but at the same time, we will work to convey the appeal of Switch 2 to new consumers through the release of software titles and other means. Among consumers who have migrated to Switch 2, there is no single group that stands out in terms of when they first started playing Switch. Consumers who purchased Switch all the way back at launch in 2017, up through those who just bought it recently, have evenly transitioned to the Switch 2 system. Next up, the Mario Kart series has produced the best-selling software for the past few generations, and I imagine that pattern will continue with Switch 2. So any possibility that a title surpasses the Mario Kart series in terms of unit sales and will be released on the Switch 2? Shigeru Miyamoto responds, Nintendo has always worked with the idea that there are no limits to our efforts. For example, when we tried our hand at movies with the Super Mario Bros. Movie, its success was compared to the box office revenue of other movies. However, even if the movie topped the rankings, we would think there is more room for growth. My latest theme is that there's no ceiling in the world of entertainment. In that sense, there are still many markets around the world that can be expanded through Nintendo Switch. If some Nintendo IP or innovation is widely accepted by consumers as something new and never before seen, the numbers could potentially reach beyond the boundaries of entertainment. One thing that is interesting about Nintendo is that it's okay to try anything. On the other hand, even if something like that happens, Mario Kart would probably continue to sell well in that undertaking as well, so it may never be surpassed. A long time ago, before creating the first Pokemon game, Satoshi Tajiri, the director of Pokemon, joked with me that to surpass Nintendo's Mario, he'd have to sell 2 copies of the game to each consumer. That is one of the reasons why Pokemon started with both Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. I believe that new ideas are born precisely because of people like him who challenge themselves to surpass what came before. Another question comes in. Hypothetically speaking, if former President Hiroshi Yamauchi were still alive and evaluated the current state of Switch 2, what kind of comments do you think he would make? Miyamoto. Yamauchi, as president of Nintendo, might feel a sense of envy that the numbers have surpassed those of his own tenure. But in a typical Kyoto business executive manner, I think he would say, stay humble, keep your feet on the ground, and do the right thing. Next up. Can you elaborate on the future development of movies and videos? In October, Nintendo Pictures released a short film that it created, but do you plan to shift towards producing movies and other video content in-house? Furukawa, based on the reception of the Mario Bros. Movie, we feel that movies and videos are forms of entertainment that have great synergy with games, and that we would be able to provide original offerings in this field that are uniquely Nintendo. As I mentioned in today's presentation, this is a field where we would like to even be more actively involved in going forward. Through movies and videos, we hope to expand the number of Nintendo fans and encourage them to take an interest in our games and build a relationship with consumers, so they will support Nintendo across generations. Miyamoto chimes in. As an entertainment company, Nintendo has developed a variety of games, IP, and characters. A major reason behind our venture into creating movies and videos is thinking about what kind of entertainment experiences our company can create next that can be an asset over the long term. So far, we have focused on interactivity, but we decided to also expand into videos, a more linear form of media. Of course, we need people to create movies and videos. However, when considering whether to expand the size of Nintendo as an organization moving forward, just continuously increasing our headcount is not the answer. To address this point, we thought about whether we could collaborate with people around the world who make video content, and this was how we started this initiative. Japanese businesses often use the expression overseas expansion, but most of the time end up being incorporated into a pre-existing international framework. We believe that the world is a single market, and we should ourselves invest in developing content that can be enjoyed globally regardless of where it came from. Now we've reached a point where Nintendo developers can work alongside various production companies and creators on equal footing, engaging in a variety of conversations and collaborations. To elaborate, I'd like to go into a specific business practice. For movies, there's an established business framework where the distribution companies manage movies. The past indicates that following that established structure and creating content with care and attention leads to profits. On the other hand, Nintendo Pictures is creating its own videos and conducting research based on the idea of taking on new challenges in the field rather than being an organization for creating movies like the Mario movie. While movies are made accordingly to a proven business model, we would like to take on a various challenge in areas that have not yet clearly taken shape, and so have prepared an environment that will enable us to work on this undertaking one step at a time. The Close to You Pikmin-themed short video that was released recently was created as an experiment based on this concept. We would like to continue providing this kind of content that generates enthusiasm around the world and develop it into an important asset for Nintendo. We appreciate your warm support. And I believe this is the last question here, question 6. I'd like to verify how to increase the component cost affects the profitability of Switch 2 hardware. While the cost of memory modules has been increasing lately, if this trend continues after you have exhausted your current stock of components, what will be the impact? Is there a possibility the hardware profitability could decline? Furukawa. We believe that we will be able to maintain the current level of profitability for hardware for the time being unless there are significant changes in external factors, such as a shift in tariff assumptions or an unexpected event. While we are aware that the costs of various materials are rising, we also anticipate that some areas where the cost reduction may be achieved for Switch 2 through ongoing mass production efforts. Therefore, we currently do not expect the recent rise in material costs to greatly impact profitability. We will continue our efforts to maintain the same level of profitability as we currently have. Basically, yeah, components will get cheaper in some areas and more expensive in others, and we think it's just going to balance out. All right, that was a lot. So let's get into our next story here. This one comes from Digital Foundry, but we're going to use a summary over on X because I just don't feel like showing the whole video. Digital Foundry and Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. We have a couple stories here. 60 FPS in all modes, except for the cutscenes are 30. Also, if you're using dual screen mode, that's also 30 FPS, like split screen. Dot resolution is 720p to 900p. Handheld is 832 by 468 to 1152 by 648. There's no anti-aliasing, some shadows, and very low reflections, and there's no DLSS. FSR 1.0 is used, which we have seen continually be a thing. When games start development on Switch, they use FSR. When they're developed just for Switch 2, they use DLSS. So here you go. Obviously, I've been playing the game, so I know that it doesn't look as crisp as the updates to Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. I've noticed that right away. I end up not caring because the gameplay is so smooth and just I'm really enjoying the game. So, but Digital Foundry, did their little review, so you have that for additional information. Also, we have some good news about Age of Imprisonment. There's going to be free updates. So there's free updates planned, 2 of them, in fact. The official statement here is with Zonite. Oh wait, this is about the different modes here. But when we go up here, the official Zelda Muso account on social media has revealed the developer is apparently gearing up to release 2 free updates in the future, which will allow fans of the new title to enjoy experience for even longer. Will those be story updates? We don't really know. They don't go into any more details than that, but free updates are coming. That's always good. Free updates to games. That's what we like to hear. Let's get into some bigger news here. How about the fact that yesterday there was a release date announced for the Pokemon Legends Mega Dimensions DLC? We can go here. They confirmed it all, made a big deal out of it, did a whole video on it. And it's pretty interesting because it's coming on December 10th. And I guys got to say, while we're not watching the video here, the reason we're not watching the video is a personal choice of mine. Normally we would, but I got to be honest, it feels like cut content. I feel like the Donkey Kong DLC is probably cut content as well. It's possible this DLC wasn't completed until after the game came out. But even then, that means it was, I don't know. It just, when it comes that close to release, I was upset when they pre-announced this DLC to begin with. I'm even more upset that it's coming in December instead of like February or March. I don't like cut content like this. I feel like if they're going to do that, make it a free update if it's not done yet. But people are going to buy it. Not me, though. I won't be buying it, but some people will. You know who also might be buying things coming up in December? People who want Sonic Crossworlds Racing for Switch 2. Switch 2 version of Sonic Racing Crossworlds gets a release date and a Switch upgrade path pricing. So the Switch 2 version of the game will be available digitally on Switch 2 on Thursday, December 4th, same day as Metroid Prime 4, at $70. There's also going to be a physical release in early 2026. If you already own it on Switch, you could upgrade to the Switch 2 version for $10. So there you go. It'll be $5, I believe, for the first week. So there it is. If you're looking forward to that, I think that's great. And we gotta get to our last story. I think this one is really interesting because analysts out there are now saying that there are certain IPs, certain games that would make a lot of money if there was a remake or remaster. So article is over here on Video Game Chronicle by Chris Scullion. And it says, early in the week, Ampere stated that video game consumers spent twice as much on remakes as remasters in the last 2 years. So remakes are really on there. So Ampere analyst, senior analyst Katie Holt has listed 18 games that should sell well if they were to be remade or remastered. Here's what they think should be remade. Assassin's Creed, like the original, Chrono Trigger, Link to the Past, Fallout, Rayman Origins, Resident Evil 5, and Uncharted Drake's Fortune. Then remasters they think would sell well are Batman Arkham Origins, Bloodborne, Bully, Dragon Age Origins, The Elder Scrolls Morrowind, Fallout New Vegas, or Red Dead Redemption 2. And then these are the remakes of the games they think would do well, whether they were a remake or a remaster. God of War, 2005, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, Far Cry, and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D. A remake. That's what I want for that one. And they've made this little chart here that, looks pretty interesting. Obviously, the ones in the middle, they're saying could be either or and do well. But yeah, those are just their projections. I think it's kind of fun to look at. Let me know what games you think would sell really well. Like, how about this? Let's turn this around. What remake or remaster would you be there day one? And would you want it to be a remake or would you want it to be a remaster? Why or why not? Let me know down in the comments below. All right, guys, that's our video. Kind of rushed through it here because you know what? The video is getting done later in the day than anticipated, and we have a stream to do tonight and all this other stuff going on. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rufflegance, and I'll catch you in the next video.